Let's see. Don Laible has a new column up on our website at WIBX950.com, and it is all about the current play-by-play broadcaster at the Syracuse Mets and what that really means. You know, the reality is that they tend to get to AAA, and just like the players can move up and hopefully into the majors, but that is as competitive as becoming a shortstop in the majors. Right? Maybe even a little more competitive because there are so few positions that are out there. And Don is on the line right now. Don, good morning.
Hey, good morning. It's an exciting time to be a baseball fan. We've got 1 week to go to inductions in Cooperstown. And finally, justice is being served. Gil Hodges, the great manager of the New York Mets, the great Brooklyn Dodger, going into the Hall of Fame. So it's a great time to be a baseball fan.
Don, I must first say the first element of justice really occurred yesterday. The Mets have not choked, and it's before the All-Star break. They actually took 2 out of 3 from the Braves and are back to 2.5 games in front. By this time, as Mets fans, usually, Don, we're thinking about football.
Well, I have to tell you, I had a friend that was at the game yesterday, and he told me there was a lot of Met fans there, either that have moved down to that area or made the road trip. They had a lot of support there. I think there's a big fever this year that there's a very real possibility that we could have a Subway Series, and how great would that be for New York sports fans? All
right, I want to let you bring in Gill Hodges. Of course, this is Gill Hodges Jr., who currently, I believe, resides in beautiful Florida. And this year, Don, after 50 years after his passing, Gill Hodges, and I can't believe this has not happened before this, will be elected and inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
First of all, good morning, Gil. Thank you for coming on, and this is a great, exciting time for you and for your family.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So, go ahead, Don.
Well, you know, he finally got in this past December on the Golden Days Era Committee, and they judge players and people in baseball from 1947 to 1972. You need 75% of the vote to get elected. This was his 35th appearance on a Hall of Fame ballot, and it's incredible. As you said, you would have thought this would have happened a long time ago. Gil got 12 of the 16 votes. He got in, and there are so many people from New York, whether you were old enough to remember the Brooklyn Dodgers or you remember Gil managing the Mets, of course, the amazing 69 Mets team. Here's a guy who excelled not only as a manager, but I mean, he won 7 pennants, 2 World Series with the Dodgers, then, of course, managing the Mets to the World Series. It's just something that a lot of people, and I'm sure the family, has waited for so long, and for the realization that it is finally here. That, my first question for Gil, for the people to learn is, the anticipation since December. Now you're a week away from hopping on a plane, coming to beautiful Cooperstown. Do you think, are you an emotional kind of guy that when Sunday comes along and they, come out on the dais, how do you deal with that after waiting so long?
Well, it's, first of all, certainly a great honor, and we're overly thrilled that it's finally come to fruition. As far as emotions are concerned, I'm usually pretty good with keeping them under constraints.
Yeah.
But I really won't let you know until Sunday, until this takes place, because, like you said, this is a long time in the making, and the entire family is just so thrilled that it's finally come to fruition.
It is a long time in the making. When you think about your dad, 8-time National League All-Star, 3-time World Series champion, with the Brooklyn Dodgers and then the L.A. Dodgers. But the 1969 Mets, he managed that miracle Mets team. 3 times a Golden Glove Award winner as a first baseman. And, the Mets have obviously shown him the nod by retiring his jersey. but he's in the Mets Hall of Fame. But it would seem that this is a long time coming.
It is. There's been many, many years of disappointments. So many anticipations that this would be the year that he gets in, and he's missed by so close so many times. But it's okay. It's done.
Yeah.
And he's in, and that's really all that matters.
So tell me if you could about. By the way, are you still are you a Mets fan, or did you become a Dodgers fan? I mean, where do you stand in the world of baseball?
Well, I actually love baseball. I grew up with the Dodgers and knew some of their players, but the Mets also hold a dear place in my heart. Having Dad there, Dad hitting the first home run in their history, in their franchise history. Getting to travel with them during the summers when Dad was managing with them. A lot of those players were only 4, 5, 6 years older than I was at the time.
Right.
Being 18, 19, and most of the boys were 24, 25. So, I developed a bond with the players. I still talk to Art Shamsky and Ron Swoboda and Cleon Jones. The Mets really hold a dear place in my heart also.
Yeah. I would say when I worked with and Don and I both together worked with the Little Falls Mets and with a radio station when we were broadcasting those games back in the 1980s, when Al Jackson was the pitching coach in Little Falls.
Right.
What a great! I mean these were great baseball players and pioneers starting a new baseball franchise. I mean. That you can't underestimate the importance of that.
Right, absolutely, and the way they were loved by the fans.
Yeah,
I mean they embraced them, as if they were the Dodgers. When they finally had a National League team back in town, and they made some of the greatest fans in the history of baseball. Or the Met fans.
Can I ask you, when you look at what your dad went through, and because the baseball was a different game. Today, you look at the contracts and the salaries and the perks and the. It's just night and day. There's no comparison to what they did in the 50s and 60s.
Well, yeah, it's a different time, but then again, movie stars are making $25 million to make a movie.
Yeah.
So I guess keeping everything in perspective. The one thing that I find really interesting that I wish Dad would have been here to see, has become the analytical part of the game, and how big a play that's taken. Dad had all of that upstairs.
Yeah.
And it's a different scenario today when you have access to information that you couldn't store upstairs.
Yeah.
Right at your fingertips on a daily basis. But again, it's part of the transition in our times of what's going on. And there's nothing wrong with improvements.
Yeah. I agree. We're speaking with Gill Hodges Jr., his dad, Gill Hodges Sr., will be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame through the Golden Days Era Committee. That, of course, occurred in December. The induction will go on this weekend. And it is, imagine the managing skills without all of the iPads and looking, because there's a feel. When you said your dad had all the analytics in his head, he was allowed to, there's a feel there. You can feel the game and make decisions accordingly, whereas today it almost seems like it's more mathematics than anything else. This happens, this must happen, right?
Absolutely. It's the game is still the game. You still run and hit and throw the same way, but all the different possibilities, all the different reactions to how a player hits a certain pitcher, how to pitch to a certain batter, where the odds are that he's going to hit the ball to this position.
Yeah.
And how they've formed the entire transition of moving players. Dad used to have the shift for Willie McCovey, where he would put the three infielders on the right-hand side.
Wow.
And the third baseman playing almost close to second base. And I used to say to him, do you realize that if Willie McCovey turned around and squared to bunt,
yeah, right.
turned around and squared to bunt, he would go 4 for 4 against you.
Yep.
And he would say yes, and that's fine, because he won't hit the ball over the fence at any time. And Willie being the great player that he was, that's what they were willing to give up.
Yeah.
And today, that's all statistically put out there for them to have access to. I think it's terrific. I really do. I mean,
what do you think of? First of all, I have two more questions, and we'll let you go. Were you around? How close were you to the team and your dad during the '69, the miracle season of '69?
Well, I traveled with them the entire summer.
Wow.
Yeah, and Dad would get permission from the umpires and from the owners that it would be okay for me to put on a uniform and sit on the bench during the game.
That is so cool. How old were you then?
So you talk about a storied childhood?
Yeah. Wow. You had a front row seat to all of it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Just a great childhood. And, not so much a child. In 1969, I was 19 years old. So traveling with the ball club, putting on a uniform, taking batting practice, taking infield practice, sitting on the bench during the game, it was almost like being part of the team.
I mentioned Al Jackson earlier, but Buddy Harrelson was a manager up here in 84 and 85, 84, I think it was, which... just some of those names in 1969, just incredible. And both Jeff and I here are huge Mets fans, as I know Don is as well. My last question, though, is you say improvements in the game. It's awesome. We have instant replay today that's being used, I think, a little better this year, although sometimes we wait, and it seems to be so obvious. And then there's the talk about a potential strike, a computerized strike zone.
I saw that, yes.
What do you think?
In 2023?
Yeah.
I know. I'm not so sure that this is going in the right direction.
I agree. I do agree.
I disagree.
There's a limit. I mean, pitch calm in itself, has caused some scenarios.
Yeah.
I just saw the other day where, I forget who it was, has pitched, in over 1,000 innings, over 12 or 15 years, and for the first time in his career, balked.
Wow.
And the reason he balked was in his windup, the pitch comm went off in his hat.
Wow, that's what caused it.
And he stopped.
Yeah. Wow.
Or he made a motion that caused the balk.
Wow.
So, I think we have to be careful with all the availabilities that we have today and not lose sight of what made this the national pastime.
Gill Hodges Jr., congratulations for your family and for your dad, and thank you so much for taking the time this morning.
Thanks for having me on. All the best to the both of you. Take care, Don. I'll see you soon. All righty.
Don, thank you so much. Great job, Don.
You're welcome.
All right. And Don will be reporting with us coming up with the Baseball Hall of Fame